Let's learn Ancient Warriors? Critter, why are we learning Ancient Warriors? This archetype's very old. It hasn't gotten any new support recently. Even when it was new, it wasn't especially good. Oh, it's a Patreon request? From Uber Super Sloth. And they donated how much money? Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I guess I could do that. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to run a business and everything. Oh, we still have to do the explosion? I was really hoping we could skip that part. Oh, fuck! And welcome back to Let's Learn, YugiTube's most legendary deck building show. I'm a Hardleg Joe, if ya didn't know, and I think you already know my companion Critter. And I'm also joined by Twitch chat down there, just filling up with emotes, being goofy little goovers. They're a weird audience to be sure, but they're my audience and I'm glad to have them here. And today we're going to be looking at Ancient Warriors, as you probably already guessed from the thumbnail and the title and everything, which if you don't know is an archetype of beast warrior monsters, along with continuous spells and traps, which is based off of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a piece of ancient Chinese literature with a lot of legendary tales and figures. It's Dynasty Warriors. You ever played a Dynasty Warriors game? This is them. It's those guys, but in card form. And like many decks based off of substantial lore, the developers over at Konami have done a pretty good job of conveying these characters' emotions and actions through the lens of card effects. What they have not done is made those card effects particularly good or strong. Ancient Warriors have never been the best deck, and they've only been getting worse with time. But like a lot of other lore archetypes, they have a dedicated and passionate fan base, and one of them has paid me to look over this, to give it the Let's Learn treatment. So that's what we're gonna do. And if you don't know what the Let's Learn treatment is, we're gonna sit down and read over all these cards and kind of parse out their card effects. Use my years of Yu-Gi-Oh experience to figure out what's good and what's not so good. And then we're going to use that to try to build a deck from scratch without looking at any other deck profiles or write-ups. Now, as a result, it will not be the best Ancient Warrior deck, or necessarily even a good Ancient Warrior deck, but it should give you a solid foundation of understanding when it comes to this archetype, so that if you have an interest in it, you should be able to understand all the other deck profiles and write-ups that you do read, and you could jump off from there, or just make your own deck, sky's the limit. It's just a fun excuse to learn some Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes. You like to learn new things, improve yourself, right? Of course you do. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll just jump into it. Let's get a transition, alrighty. So when it comes to a new archetype, there's usually one specific place that you want to start, one kind of card that unifies archetypes together. Someone in chat already knows what it is, but unfortunately Ancient Warriors don't have a field spell. As I said, they are all Beast Warriors and continuous spells and traps. That's it. No normal spells, no normal traps, no fields. I only got one little dinky extra deck monster who's a Link 2, and I already know this isn't the boss monster. Normally after you do the field spell, that's where you want to look. But I know from experience this guy's just kind of like an extender. So instead, we're going to go to the next step, which is to look at the monsters starting with the highest level monster. Usually higher level means more important. There are certainly some exceptions, but I think here we're going to just start at the top and work our way down to kind of figure out how this works. So our first thing we're looking at is Ancient Warriors Ambitious Cow Day. And I'll let you know right off the bat, I do not speak Chinese. I do not know the pronunciations. I'm gonna try my best to do them some honor, but I ain't sitting here and looking up all those. We're just gonna do our best, okay? And if you want to comment about it, you can, but I ain't gonna do anything about it. I'm gonna do the same. Anyway, this is a Fire Beast Warrior with 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense, level 8, and the following effects. While you control another Ancient Warriors monster, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You can use each of the following effects once per turn. If a card your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, send one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon this from your hand. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, special summon that monster to your field in defense position. So already, just from this one card, you can kind of see what the theme is. It's battle-oriented. If you destroy a monster by battle, you can summon this out. It offers a bunch of protection, and then when it destroys a monster by battle, you get to recruit it to your side. I assume that this is like, you know, he's an ambitious general, he can win people over from the other side using diplomacy or whatever. I can get the thematic relevancy there. But hopefully if you know a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh, you also know why that's not great. Having a card that gives protection only after you've managed to destroy something, or in some cases only in the battle phase, that's usually too late. If they have a way to destroy or target your monsters, they're probably going to do it long before this guy enters the battlefield. And if you're in a position to be running over their stuff, I don't think summoning it to your side of the field is really going to help you. Especially because it summons it in defense position, so you can't even use it to like OTK, you can just kind of use it as like, I guess link material. You don't necessarily have to play links, but this requires 2 Beast Warriors specifically, including a Wind Ancient Warriors. So it's not like generic, you'd have to play other generic links to make use of that stealing effect. Still not bad though, if nothing else it's a free special summon, so if you're comparing this to War Rocks, which is the other like battle-oriented warrior attacking deck, this may be better? I don't know, I haven't read War Rocks either. Let me know if you'd like to see a Let's Learn on War Rocks. For now, I think you at least want to play this at 1. We'll have to see how searchable all these are before we really get to them. But let's just move on to the next one. Ancient Warrior Rebellious Lu Fang, who is a Dark Beast Warrior, 2800 attack, 2200 defense, also level 8. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand by controlling the highest attack Ancient Warrior monster on the field. You can only special summon this card once per turn this way. Once per turn, during the main phase, quick effect, you can destroy the face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, your choice if tied. Also, you cannot activate monster effects the turn you activate this effect, except Ancient Warriors. Then once per turn during the end phase, if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field, give control of this card to your opponent. So this is one I'm actually familiar with. This did see a little bit of play. This was probably their strongest card, but you can already see the lore implications going over there. From what I understand, the character this was based off of was renowned for basically changing sides. He would go to whatever side that was winning, whatever side was the most powerful. He would just turncoat on whatever army he was in, because he wanted to ally himself with whoever was the strongest. And this effect reflects that, you know, if you don't control the highest attack monster, he's gonna go over to your opponent's side. Which is very funny, but not especially effective. Not something you really want to see on your card. I would rather them use that effect space for something that's actually beneficial. Now that being said, the fact that you can special summon this just by controlling any Ancient Warrior and it's just a quick effect pop, and it's the monster with the highest attack, so it does not target. So just right off the bat, I think this is probably a 3 of. Granted, it's bricky in multiple copies, like if you get more than one, you can't summon it, but it's something that's so easy to summon if you have any other monster on the field that I think you'll always want to have it. And then, like, if you do have it, you can search something else. If you don't have it, you can search this. Next up, we have Ancient Warriors Valiant Zheng Di. This is a Wind Beast Warrior, 2700 attack, 900 defense, level 7. Gains 300 for each monster your opponent controls during your turn only, and you can only use each of the effects once per turn. If you control 2 or more Ancient Warriors, special summon this from your hand. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can activate this effect. This card can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Alright, so this guy likes to stand up against the odds. You know, if you're facing overwhelming odds, your opponent has a bunch of monsters on the field, he's gonna get stronger for each, and he can attack twice if they're outnumbered. But he only comes out if you've got 2 Ancient Warriors on the field, which makes him kind of equivalent to the Great Shogun Shien, as maybe a one-of, maybe a side deck card. I mean, it's possible that you'll be able to get 2 out, but the last thing you want is to, like, end up with a hand that has this, this, and this in it, and just not be able to summon anything. So 1 of at most for now. Moving on, we have another wind monster, Ancient Warriors Loyal Guan Yun, also known as Pankratops at Home. I'm kind of familiar with this. This is NR Pankratops. He has 2500 attack, 1800 defense, level 7, and the following effect. If only your opponent controls a monster, so you can special summon this from your hand. Your opponent cannot target other Ancient Warriors you control with card effects. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, target one monster your opponent controls, destroy it. You can only use each effect once per turn. Okay, so at first glance, this looks pretty good. I mean, it's a free special summon, it's removal, it's a level 7. I mean, there's really not a lot that makes this different from something like Fenrir or Pankratops. But as an experienced Yugist, there are some very important details that you might want to know. For starters, this summon is not what we would call an inherent or built-in special summon. This little colon here means that this card activates in your hand. So if your opponent has any effect that can, like, negate an activation, or more importantly for Master Duel, a Max C, they can chain that in response to this trying to activate. Now, the summon effect is not once per turn, probably because you can only control one monster. So if you have multiple copies and one gets destroyed or negated or whatever, you can just summon another one. And then once it's out, its effect only works if you're outnumbered, which kind of works against the favor of this. This wants to be outnumbered. And it does target, which in the modern day and age is a little bit of a liability. It targets and it destroys. So, not the greatest, but again, I think for now, we're going to go ahead and put 3 in. Maybe I'll remove it down, maybe it'll be a little bit bricky, but just as like a big guy that you can get out that has removal once your opponent has anything established, I mean, maybe this could even bait out some interaction or whatever, who knows. But we'll just put that at 3 for now, and maybe we'll move it down. Alright, next up, we have Ancient Warriors Fearsome Zhang Wan. This is a fire beast warrior. They're all beast warriors. I'm going to stop saying that. 2300 attack, 2000 defense, level 6. All other ancient warriors you control cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. At the start of the damage step, when your ancient warrior battles an opponent's monster, special summon this from your hand, and if you do, that opponent monster loses 1000 attack. If a card your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. So I think I remember I played them long ago, and I used to really love this card when the effect actually resolved, because it has that cool surprise, like, honest effect. They think that they're going to be able to survive for a turn, and then not only do you lower their attack in the damage step when a lot of effects can't resolve, but you summon a 2300 beater, and then when you destroy something by battle, you get to destroy something else. So just really good at dismembering boards. Of course, the problem is that it's a level 6 that requires you to have something else and survive the battle phase, and also it's another effect that, like, activates. So if they do have something like a Barone, and you're thinking that you can, like, Loyal Guan Yun into this, they'll just negate it with, like, the Barone de Fleur. Possibly worth playing as a one-of if you're going to, like, special summon it out. Maybe if you want to be really fancy and go all in on the battle tricks, you want to play 3 so that no matter what you get, you can just sort of, like, attack in and hopefully win battle. But with a deck like this, that's going to be like an OTK kind of battle-themed deck, you really want to be able to end the duel at the first battle phase. You don't want to have to, like, survive and try to wait until next time, because usually they don't have any kind of disruption or floating or defense. Now, it's possible with all these continuous spell traps that they do have something worth running that, like, allows you to survive an additional turn, but that's a liability in the modern game. Alright, next up we have Ancient Warriors Savage Dan Ying. Dark with 2200 attack, 1800 defense, level 6. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is actually the newest Ancient Warriors card to be released. I think it came out on Master Duel just like last year and a half ago, but didn't make much of an impact. Let's see what it does. While you control a level 7 or higher Ancient Warriors, your opponent must pay 400 life points to activate a card or effect. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a level 7 or higher Ancient Warrior and 1 Ancient Warrior continuous spell trap from your deck to your hand. If a monster is set to your opponent's graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, draw 1 card. If this had a special summoning effect, it might be significantly better. I mean, it searches 2 cards. When it's summoned, you get to add a high-level Ancient Warrior and a continuous spell trap. The problem is, I don't know how you're supposed to get this out. Are you, like, special summoning, like, Guan Yun and then tribute summoning this guy? Maybe? He's also got, like, the worst Tax Dragon effect ever. You have to have a higher level monster and it's only 400 life points to activate cards and effects. I mean, maybe that'll help you OTK a little bit, but I mean, here's the thing, right? Usually if you have those kind of tax effects, those are best when you're going first. You want to set one of those down and then make your opponent burn through their life points trying to do plays. If you're a go second OTK deck, the only thing they're going to be activating on your turn is quick effects that are probably going to be removing your monsters. Granted, I mean, maybe something like Snake Eyes. You know, if you send their Flamberge Dragon to the graveyard, they're going to activate like 7 effects, so maybe this becomes somewhat good. And I mean, you do get to banish a card, so this does almost feel like anti-Snake Eyes stuff. But the fact that you can't get it on the field very easily has me very wary. Maybe there are other ways to get it out. I'll put a couple more in the side deck. But we will see. We will see. Okay, and with that, we're finally free of the high-level monsters. The rest of these are all level 4, so let's see what we get out of a normal summon in Ancient Warriors, starting with Masterful Sun Mao. This is a water with 1800 attack, 1500 defense, and the following effect. When you control another Ancient Warriors, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. Send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard. Add 1 Ancient Warriors from your deck to your hand, except for this card. If your other Ancient Warrior monster effect is activated, except during the damage step, target 1 monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Alright, so it is a searcher. You have to send something off, but you've got all these continuous spell traps, so I'm sure one of these can be pretty good fodder. So normally in Yu-Gi-Oh, anytime you have a card that searches cards, you want to play that at 3. It's possible this isn't good, because maybe you don't have anything that adding to your hand will do. Maybe there are better searchers that you would rather use, or maybe you don't want to send your continuous spell traps off. But for the moment, I'm going to put it at 3, and we'll see what happens. Next up, we have Ancient Warriors, Graceful Zhao Gong. It's a water with 16/16 both ways. You can target 1 continuous spell trap you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, add an Ancient Warrior spell trap from your deck to your hand. If your other Ancient Warrior monster effect is activated, target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Alright, so we've got another searcher, kind of. I mean, you have to use specifically an Ancient Warrior spell trap. I do know there are also other continuous spell traps that you'd want to play in this deck. This guy can send any card from your hand or field, so that already makes this a little less good, and I'm not sure if you really need to be searching these, how critical these are going to be. So this is another one I'm going to like, we'll play some in the side deck. Maybe you want to search this out somehow, maybe you'll get another like normal summon through something, but at the moment it doesn't look particularly great. Okay, next up, we have Ancient Warriors, Virtuous Luzon. It's a wind, 1400 attack, 1200 defense, so not the most powerful warrior. And while you control another Ancient Warriors, your opponent cannot target this card for attacks. You can only use each effect once per turn. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon an Ancient Warrior from your deck, except another copy of itself. And then when an attack is declared involving another Ancient Warrior you control, you can draw 1 card. Alright, so we've got a summon from the deck. Granted, it costs. You have to send a card from your hand or field to the graveyard. I think that's, let me read that again. Yeah, hand or field. So far, we don't have any monsters with like graveyard effects or graveyard revival, so it's really going to depend on these spell traps. But being able to summon anything out of the deck means that, you know, playing one of these is relevant. playing one of any of these could be relevant because it doesn't even have a restriction on level. So we do have the potential for quite a bit of swarming here. And now I'm like, do we really want this one if we've already got this one? We'll see. You probably want at least like 6 normal summons, 5 normal summons in the modern day. So it's not unheard of to play like 2 level 4s that you want a normal. But if there's one that's like especially better than the other, you usually want to focus on like that card and other cards that search it. Okay, 3 more monsters left. Next up is Ancient Warriors Deceptive Jiwen. It's a fire with 1100 attack, 1800 defense, so a more defensive monster. And the following effect. You can target 1 continuous spell trap you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, have the attack of 2 face-up monsters on the field until the end of this turn. If a card your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, target 1 Ancient Warrior in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. Okay, so we finally got a little bit of graveyard recovery. Granted, you have to use another effect to destroy it. I do like this like non-targeting have 2 monsters, because one of the problems I was looking at is that we have so much removal while at the same time having a deck that requires your opponents to have a bunch of monsters on the field. It would be really better if you could negate a whole bunch of them or like have their attack or maybe do both. So that way you can get all your monsters on the field and then attack for a lot of damage. And this guy does that. Granted, it seems very situational. It doesn't actually remove stuff, which could be a problem. It still has a cost. It's not a whole lot of attack. So I think this is also like a one of at best. I wouldn't even like side deck other ones to see. All right, next up we have Ingenious Zhang Kong. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's a wind with just 1000 attack, 200 defense, and the following effect. If this card is added from the deck to the hand by the effect of an Ancient Warrior, you can special summon it. When a spell trap is activated, quick effect, you can send 1 face-up Ancient Warrior's continuous spell trap to the graveyard, negate the activation. When a monster effect is activated while you control Virtuous Luzon, you can send 1 Ancient Warrior's continuous spell trap to the graveyard, negate the activation. Ah, I see. Okay, so we got a combo. It's good that we do have negates, and it's both a spell trap negate and a monster negate, but only while you have specifically this guy. Which is weird, because this is the guy that summons out of the deck, and what we have here is what we'd call a Poplar effect now. If you search it, you get to summon it. But only if you search it with a Ancient Warrior effect. So maybe one of these searches and does it. Obviously Sun Mu searches it and then you can immediately summon it. But then the monster negation isn't online. A spell trap negate can be pretty good in some formats depending on what your opponent might have in the back row. Although if they have something that can destroy and they see this like activating in the hand, they're probably just gonna, destroy your monster before this even comes down. Or destroy your spell trap so you don't even have to worry about it. But still, another card, definitely worth playing at 1. Probably wouldn't want to play it at more than 1 because it's useless without this guy, and it gets an effect specifically by being summoned or searched. And that just leaves us to our last Ancient Warriors, Eccentric Lu Jing. It's a water with just 700 attack and 2000 defense. You can target 1 continuous spell trap you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, add an Ancient Warrior spell trap with a different name from your graveyard to your hand. If your other Ancient Warrior effect is activated, you can target 1 spell trap your opponent controls, destroy it. Alright, I'm not even going to finish that. We finally found one that's not even worth summoning. It recycles cards out of the graveyard, and it pops spell traps. We've already got a spell trap negate. You don't really need a pop. The pop only activates when something else activates. Most likely, again, you want to make this a deck that's going to win on your first battle phase. You're not going to be worrying about recycling stuff. If you get to the point where you have to recycle your spell traps, you've already lost in this kind of deck. And actually, now that I think about it, I said that was the last monster, but we do have another monster. I guess we should go ahead and read the extra deck monster, see what this link actually does while we're here. It looks like it's just Lu and Kong. It's just the 2 of them together, but like on a card. So they combo and then they double combo. So it's 2 Beast Warriors, including a Wind Ancient Warrior. So you have to use this guy or Or you have to use one of these two and then any other monster. Alright, alright. And its effect is, all Ancient Warriors gain 500 attack and defense. You can use each of the following effects once per turn. If this is Link summoned, add an Ancient Warrior card from your deck to your hand. Quick effect, send one card from your hand or field to the graveyard. Target one face-up card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Alright, I mean, it's a searcher. Especially if you've already used these effects, you might want to do that. I'd say go ahead and play it at 2, because there's a chance you like summon it and try to activate the search, it gets negated and destroyed, and then somehow you make another one that you can use for the bounce, so you can have like each effect once, but even that's probably overkill. You probably only want one, again, just because you're trying to end things on the first turn. You don't need supplies for a grind game. Alright, and with the monsters gone, we can finally take a look at these spell traps. And we're just going to go down the line. None of them seemed particularly important. Starting with Ancient Warriors Saga, Borrowing of Arrows. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and one Ancient Warriors monster you control. Until the end of this turn, have the opponent's attack, and if you do, add that lost attack to your monster, even if this card leaves the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard while you control an Ancient Warriors monsters with 2 or more different attributes, you can place one Ancient Warriors continuous spell trap from your hand or deck face up on your field, except another copy of itself. Very interesting. So, the having of monsters attacks, not specifically good. I mean, it was fine on a monster that could do it to 2 monsters without targeting, but this requiring you to have, like, a bunch of setup or whatever to do it, The fact that, like, if you send it off for an effect, it gets any other one, might make it worth playing, though. It depends if that's an effect that we see on all the other cards. Because we have a lot of cards that allow us to send off a card to do a thing, this is pretty good at, like, baiting out some interaction, while also, potentially searching us other stuff. So I'm going to put 2 in the side for now. We might end up playing more, but for 1, I think one of maybe. This might not even be something we play at all, potentially. Alright, next up we have Ancient Warriors Saga, Deception and Betrayal, which I believe is the other newer card, because it has the new guy on it that I didn't know about. I've never seen this activated. Let's see if it's any good. During your main phase, you can special summon one Ancient Warrior from your hand, and if you do, take damage to its level times 1,000. You can send this card from the spell trap zone to the graveyard, target an Ancient Warrior on the field, change it to any attribute, then if you targeted an opponent's monster, you could take control of it. You can only use each effect once per turn. Alright, right. So in the mirror match, this card is crazy, and not in the mirror match, kinda hard to say. On the one hand, if you've got a deck all about special summoning and trying to get as many of these out as possible, I mean, a lot of these effects activate when another one activates. So I can see you being in a position where you have like 4 monsters, and then you trigger one, and then it just makes this cascade where you're like, negate, and then pounce, and then send this to the graveyard, and then have the attack, and then pop a spell trap, and you go all crazy. But if you draw like this and you don't have enough monsters, you're gonna be in for a bad time. And the other effect is just like plain useless. So we'll see. This is another one I'm gonna do like 1 of, maybe 3 of. We'll see how difficult it is to get board presence when we actually test it. Oh, did I say times 1,000 on this? Chat's saying I didn't do this right. It's equal to its level times 100. If it was times 1,000, then like these guys would be literally impossible to summon. You take 800 for summoning this, not the entirety of your life points. Alright, next up, Ancient Warriors Saga East by South Winds. Ooh, powerful winds. You must send this card to the graveyard during your second standby phase after activation. Once per turn during the main phase, toss a coin, and if the result is heads, send this card to the graveyard. If this card is sent from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. This turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Ancient Warriors cards and effects. Also, until the end of the turn, all Ancient Warrior effect monsters gain this attack. When this card declares an attack, you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls. That is very strange. It's a continuous spell whose only real effect it activates when it's sent to the graveyard. And you can flip a coin to see if you can send it to the graveyard. I mean, you have a lot of effects that can send it to the graveyard on itself, but it makes a good point of like, yeah, if you have to activate this to resolve this, your opponent's probably going to negate this if they have the ability. Like, I'm immediately thinking of Ancient Gears. They have a card that's continuous, and when you put it down, your opponent can't respond to any of your Ancient Gear cards. That's really good because you don't have to, like, put in any effort. You just slam it down, and if they don't have an answer to it, they can't answer any of your other cards. This is kind of like that, just worse in every conceivable way. Because if they have an answer to anything that sends this to the graveyard, well, then you got a problem. And you can't just send it to the graveyard because you have to flip a fucking coin. Or you could wait 2 turns. You know, I remember when I first read this, I was like, okay, we ain't getting to a second standby phase after 3 turns? Good luck surviving that long. I'm gonna say it's not worth playing for now. I don't know, I'm really kind of conflicted because on the one hand, if you resolve that effect, then you could just do everything. But it's a coin flip. You know, if you're playing this deck for thematic reasons, for lore reasons, play this at 3. You know, it'll feel really epic when you get it done. If you actually want to play a consistent deck, I think just ignore this one. Alright, next up we have Ancient Warriors Saga Sun Lu Alliance. If you control Ancient Warriors monsters with 2 or more different attributes, you can declare 1 attribute. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they currently control with that attribute until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. If your opponent special summons a monster, or you activate an Ancient Warrior monster effect, you can make all Ancient Warriors gain 300 attack for every Ancient Warrior you control until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now that's a hell of effect, I tell you what. Although again, it just feels like it's too late. On the one hand, it's a very powerful floodgate, especially in certain metas. If you can go into like Snake Eye Fire King match and just call fire and stop them from activating any of the fire effects on the field, or even just call wind against something like an Appaloosa on the field, that deals with something. The problem is, how are you going to get 2 Ancient Warriors on the field if your opponent has like an Appaloosa? Maybe you rely on the other continuous spell that's going to summon them out. Maybe you're going to rely on like inherent effects to get them out. But the fact that this is essentially a 3-card combo means it's very rare that you're going to be able to actually activate and resolve this effect while they have any disruption on the field. Like, either they're going to have enough disruption to stop you, or they're not going to have disruption, and then who even cares about negating their stuff? The attack boost is nice. I mean, you're almost certainly going to get that, and that might let you OTK. So, maybe a 1 of? I'll keep it at 1 for now, just out of, you know, sake of the Alliance. But I don't think you really want to be playing this one. Alright, next up we have Ancient Warriors Saga 3 Visits. Ah! During your main phase, if you normal or special summon an Ancient Warrior, target one of those monsters, add an Ancient Warrior with a different name from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent from the spell trap zone to the graveyard, special summon an Ancient Warrior from your hand. You can only use each one. Okay. Wait, what, was there something else there? Send this card to the graveyard during your second activation. Okay, well that's going to be sent to the graveyard long before then. This is clearly the best one. It does everything you could want. This is the best one. Play it at 3. Use its effect often as possible. It's not very glamorous, but it's what gets all your monsters on board, so you absolutely want to do that. And then all that leaves us with is the 2 traps, which I'm super wary of, because again, this looks like an entirely OTK blind second style deck, which means you don't really want to be playing traps, but who knows, maybe one of these traps is so good that it converts this into a go first deck. Probably not, but we'll see. Starting with Ancient Warriors Saga Chivalrous Path. If an Ancient Warrior's monsters would be destroyed by battle, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon an Ancient Warrior token. which is a level 1 with 500 attack or defense. When a card or effect is activated that targets an Ancient Warrior monster, you can banish this from the graveyard, negate the activation. You can only use each of these once per turn. So yeah, when they special summon, you can get a useless token. If it would be destroyed by battle, you can send this instead, and you can banish it from the graveyard to negate something that targets. I don't think we'll be playing this one, chat. I don't think it's particularly good. Let's look at this last one. Ancient Warriors Saga, The Defense of Changban. If your Ancient Warrior monster battles, your opponent cannot activate spell traps until the end of the damage step. Look, son, this is what they need to mimic even a fraction of Ancient Gear's power. You can only use one of the following effects per turn. At the start of the battle phase, you could send this from your spell trap zone to the graveyard. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target Ancient Warriors monsters for attacks this turn. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from the graveyard, special summon an Ancient Warrior from the deck. Well, I mean, it is Wabaku, essentially. You can only use one of the following effects, so like if they negate this first one, or if you use this first one and they have a way around it, you can't also, like, summon an Ancient Warrior from the deck. You have to choose one or the other. Do we have a way to search this? I forget. Like, this searches any spell trap, right? This, technically, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can place one face up on the field, except another copy of itself. So maybe it's worth playing one of these if you fail to OTK, but that sounds like planning for failure, you know? This could instead be a card that makes it more likely for you to OTK. Granted, if you just played it one, most games it's going to remain in the deck, and that won't impact your hand at all. Again, if you're doing a role play, if you're playing in like a low power format, if you want to be doing the Ancient Warriors experience, then play one of this. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth it either way. And with that, we have read every Ancient Warriors card. And, you know, I get what they're trying to go for. You're spamming the field with a bunch of monsters. You're attacking. You're activating effects. You're bouncing monsters. You're trying to go in for an OTK. I am uncertain if you'll be able to achieve that. I'm also still uncertain if you play more Deception and Betrayal. On the one hand, it does help you just get more monsters out of your hand. And I mean, if you can get this out of your hand, you can get more monsters. So maybe like, well, you're grabbing this with like 3 visits anyway. So, you know, we'll go ahead. We'll try it like this. The one thing I'm worried about is that we just don't have enough monsters to really make this worth it. Although one way we can help that is with the unofficial Ancient Warriors card, which is Fire Formation Tenki. If you're somehow unfamiliar with this, it's just a search card. When this is activated, add 1 level 4 lower Beast Warrior from your deck to your hand, and then all Beast Warriors gain 100. And these are all Beast Warriors, so you get any of your searchers, you put them onto the field, and what do you know? Now you have a card to send off to use for their effects. So you can use this, maybe search out the Deception, or get this, maybe you've opened with the Deception, maybe you've opened with the bonding of arrows or whatever, but doesn't leave a whole lot of room for tech cards if we do it that way. But we've got to fill it up with tech cards, so let's just, Alright, and with that, we have read every Ancient Warriors card, and, you know, I think I get the playstyle. Blind second. There's a couple people in chat saying, no, you want to go first, but all you've got is like 1 spell trap or monster negate and 1 pop. Maybe you can have the trap to like stave you for a turn and then you OTK, but I feel like you'd be better off just playing a whole bunch of board breakers and stuff. The one question I really have is whether or not we want to play more of the Don and his spell trap that summons him. And while this is easily searchable, this one is not. So I think we're going to play one of this, and we're going to go ahead and go all in on this. And then to make sure this is live, we want to play as many Ancient Warriors as possible. Right now we have slightly less than 20, but we can alleviate that by playing the secret hidden Ancient Warriors card, Fire Formation Tenki. If you don't know, this is very simple. When it's activated, add a level 4 lower Beast Warrior from your deck to your hand. All Beast Warriors gain 100 attack. All of these are Beast Warriors, you add them, and what do you know? Now you have a card you can send to the graveyard to activate their effects. So these just act as additional copies of this. These can get you this guy. If that guy's summoned, you get other stuff. This can help you special summon more. So hopefully we've got a pretty solid engine of just being able to barf all the monsters onto the field and attack for 1,000,000 billion damage. Of course, in order to ensure that happens, we need to play as many board breakers and go second tools as possible, and we only have 10 slots for that, which is not a lot in the modern game. But I'll look through, see if I can figure out what the best options are going to be, and then we'll be back with a fancy version of the deck. Waka shwa! And there we go! Check it out. I decided to go with the Thrust package. It seemed the most thematically relevant. I'm pretty sure this is like a 6 samurai guy, but he certainly looks like an ancient warrior. If you're somehow unfamiliar with this, if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can set a normal spell trap from your deck, except for another copy of this. Or if your opponent controls a monster, add it to your hand instead. So, you know, you have this, and then you have a whole bunch of power spells. Harpy's Feather Duster, Raigeki, Lightning Storm, Triple Tactics Talent. So if they try to stop any of your plays or hand trap any of your plays, what do you know? Now you got a whole bunch of like board breaker cards. And in the case of these two, you don't necessarily want to destroy all their monsters. But usually in the modern game, what's going to happen is they'll make like 2 Omni Negates or maybe just 1 Omni Negate. And then Raigeki won't destroy the field. It'll just force them to use one of those Omni Negates. And then you can actually resolve a bunch of your Ancient Warrior cards. And then in addition to that, we're just playing Gameciel. We're having some turtle power. The Kaijus, you can special summon this from your hand to an opponent's field by tributing 1 monster they control. So if they have a negate and you're worried about it, bam, it becomes turtle now, which is a great way to nullify whatever that effect is, make sure you don't have to play around it, while also maintaining field presence on their side of the field for anything that requires your opponent to have monsters or more monsters than you do. Of course, this is probably not optimal if you're playing on Master Duel. You probably just want to throw in Maxi, Ash Blossom, and Called By. You also might want to play the one-of draw cards, like Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Desires, just to be able to get more cards in hand. This one, I mean, you might end up, like, banishing something you need, but most of the stuff we really want, we're playing it more than one, and none of them are, like, super-duper important to your combo. They're mostly just extenders that are big numbers, and because it doesn't matter, you're not trying to survive past the first turn anyway, it's never going to come up that you banish 10 cards from your deck. Now, of course, it's also possible that we're playing too many monsters or too many spell traps. Maybe we want to remove the Deception and Betrayal. Maybe we want to cut some of these down, especially Guan Yun. And if you do that, it makes this one worse. You know, it makes all of these ones that require you to have an Ancient Warrior slightly less good. And it also makes it less likely that you're going to be able to extend, which is one of the big problems with this deck to begin with, right? It's a deck that relies on you extending with the Ancient Warrior cards, which means playing a whole bunch of them and just trying to spam through whatever negates your opponent has. There was a time where that was more feasible, and these days things have just gotten so powerful that you really need a whole bunch of board breakers and then like a 1-card starter, as opposed to like a combination of 5 cards that can play through some amount of disruption. Either way, this is probably about as best as I'm going to be able to make on the first try. We could fill in the extra deck, but our most powerful card locks us out of using any effects other than Ancient Warriors anyway. I feel like most of the time we're not going into the extra deck. We should worry more about doing the combos here. So I'm just going to leave it blank for now. And we're going to try this out. I'm going to test this out a little bit and then see if I can find an AI to stomp into the ground, to try to stomp into the ground. We'll see how this works against that. Alright, so we've signed up against an AI here on YGO Omega, which if you didn't know, that's where we're playing. And we're going up against Altergeist, which I feel like, you know, if the AI knows kind of what it's going to do, it should be able to put like a couple monsters on the field, should be able to do. It did not activate the Multi-Faker. Maybe it'll do it after I do something? Possibly? We'll see. One thing I figured out is that even though this guy like summons from the deck, you really don't want to add this most of the time. Although we've already got 2 of the better starters, so we'll go ahead and go for this. So let's do this. And, oh wait, actually we do want to use this time. So we'll use this guy. Oh, our opponent has to control more monsters than us. That's why you don't want to use that. And they still refuse to... Oh, there they go. Oh, there they go. Oh, now they're doing stuff. There were a whole bunch of stuff just happened. Now they've got a pop, they've got a bounce, they've got things, and it's a turtle. Enjoy turtle. Thumbs up. Okay, now they've got more monsters. We can send off a card. Let's send an extra copy of this. And we are actually going to summon Graceful Zhao Gong here. And then Graceful can send off the continuous spell. And we're going to get the one that lets us summon from the hand. So we're going to activate this. We're going to use the effect, Special Summon an Ancient Warrior from the hand. Get this guy. We could turn one of these into wind, but we've already got the wind. So instead, what I'm going to do is activate this, send it off. I believe we already used this guy's effect, and we can't try to summon it again. So instead, I think we just go for this at this point. Because we control more than one Ancient Warriors. And we've activated the effect, which means we can do a whole bunch of things. This will negate a monster. And then because that activated, this guy activates, who bounces a card, which importantly, can bounce the turtle back to our hand. And then we could be like, well, I don't want you to have, like, an Altergeist on board, so let's turn that into a turtle as well. Then we'll special summon this. Let's see here. We can make the Ancient Warrior Link. The problem is I don't think we have any other extend... Oh, wait, we do have an extender. Okay. Let's go for this. When this is summoned, we can search out any card. And I think we're going to go for Cow Day, actually. And then I think I should be able to activate all these. So let's go to the battle phase. Let's attack in with this. Start of the damage step, we will aximate the, aximate, what the hell? We're gonna activate the Fearsome Zhang Yun. That'll lower it, send it to the graveyard, and then, are these both if effects? So we can trigger both of these in the damage step. So we'll get rid of this, and we'll summon this. Just in case they had something. Wait, I have to send a card to the graveyard? Okay, well I'll send the guy who already attacked. It was Waking the Dragon! Oh shit! That might actually be powerful if they had more stuff. Okay, so let's go in for 35. They get to add a card back. Let's go in for 23. And there we go. So that's how it works when your opponent just has like one bit of disruption. Let's try again and see if we can get another duel where maybe they put on a little bit more than just that one thing and see if we can still OTK. Alright, this is a significantly worse hand, but we do get a draw. Let's see if that draw does something. Going Meluseek into Kuriboh, into get the Multi-Faker. They're a big trap-based deck if you're unfamiliar with Altergeist. They activate, they get to summon. Summon gets to summon. Why they summoned this, I don't know. Let's pretend, though, that this was a card that actually did something. Now it doesn't. Yay! Although they do get to search. So let's do that. Let's Lightning Storm. We'll destroy all the spell traps. Excellent, excellent. We can thrust. Yeah, I guess we thrust and we get talents. Because nothing here really threatens us. What we need is the ability to OTK. So we're just going to draw 2 cards. And this is not one we really wanted to get. Unfortunately, we don't have any continuous spell traps. We can summon our own kaiju because we have one. These both... This has slightly more attack. So I guess we're going to do this one. And then we'll special summon the Lu Feng. And then we can destroy their card with the highest attack. And we have failed to OTK. Now, most modern decks, in addition to putting up a little bit more fight than this, would also be able to take advantage of this and like use one card combos to rebuild their board. Almost any modern deck released in the last year, whether you're talking Voiceless Voice or Centurion, is going to have a whole bunch of one card starters that get their combos going. We do have a quick effect pop, so that's not nothing, but with 5 cards in hand, or 4 cards in hand, they might still be able to do quite a bit. So what does this affect? Target one Altergeist in one of your graveyards, send that card to the graveyard, and if you do... Okay, so if they don't, if it's destroyed, then they don't get to do that. Okay, they're bringing back Multi-Faker. Multi-Faker summons this. This prevents me from attacking. But fortunately, oh wait, I don't have any continuous. And I don't have the one guy I need. Yep, I'm already learning a few things. Fortunately, this is once per turn, but you can have 2 of them. We'll just pop a card. They get something. Oh, is this each once per turn? Soft once per turns. Everyone's getting destroyed. Okay, let's normal summon the wind. I think we have game either way, but just to be certain, we'll summon this. We'll get, I don't know, this guy. This guy's pretty cool. I control 2 Ancient Warriors. He just kind of hops out, doing a little hop on pop. And there we go. Let's go back to the deck building, because I think I've learned a thing or two. Alright, so what I learned from those 2 AI duels, plus a couple other test hands you didn't get to see, is that having a lot of these tech cards is just not worth it. Like, having the attack rarely comes up. Being able to lock them out of attributes, just not really important. And this one, while cool and kind of funny, is kind of a win more card. It's something you only activate or search when you've already got a pretty stark advantage. You never, like, need it. Even this guy is kind of suspect, but I worry about not having enough cards to search, especially if we're playing the Savage Dan Ying in here. So I've taken out them, I've taken out the one alliance, and I've put in Infinite Impermanence. This is another pretty good staple that works especially well in Go Second decks, because it gives you a choice. If you see that your opponent's going to build a field that you can't possibly overcome, you can try to use this proactively on the first turn to negate their cards. Or, if you want, you can just save it until your turn, and then the first thing you do is, like, activate it on a Baronne de Fleur, and just like the Raigeki or whatever, it baits out some kind of negation. Or it can stop that negation so that then your Raigeki or your Lightning Storm or whatever can go through. It does kind of suck that this requires your opponent to control more monsters than you in order to resolve it. That's why this ends up being much better starter. Especially because some of the stuff you could search, like this guy, gets you into the Double Dragon Lords, which searches anything. And if you got, like, you could summon Liu Bang. There's a couple little, like, neat quirks and stuff. But it's still definitely a deck where you are just putting everything, your entire hand, into one big push. And if that push doesn't work, you're basically just relying on Liu Fang. All that being said, as neat as this deck is, I don't really think it's worth trying to bring in duels against, like, modern decks. I'm sure you probably could steal a win or two against something like Centurion or Voiceless Voice. Some of these, like, tier 2 decks that aren't as great. Maybe Raid Raptors if they go all in on something, and then you can, like, Gamma Seal their Ultimate Falcon and then OTK them. It might be able to work. But you really have to get a good hand and get kind of fortunate with what you're up against. I'm currently playing Ancient Gears for the Ladder Climb this month, and that's a deck that can afford to play a whole lot of more board breakers, and can also assemble, like, a whole lot of damage, way over 8,000 damage from, like, a single card, and even that struggles in the modern game. So this one is going to very extra struggle. I'm struggling to think of words to describe a little how outdated this is. But, you know, it's still pretty neat. It's nice thematically. Maybe one of these days we could do like another Master Cube or something, a limited format, where these will have a chance to shine. Or maybe they'll make a whole lot more of these and somehow bring them up to the modern standard. I mean, there's certainly enough characters in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms to make several more cards out of this. For now, though, I think I'm going to call it. Hopefully you enjoyed learning something. Hopefully you did learn something. Perhaps you found a new pet deck that you can have fun experimenting with. Perhaps you think I'm wrong and you think this deck can survive. If so, let me know what kind of deck you're building. Show me, put some profiles down in the comments. Give me a link to a picture or something. I'll go check it out. For now, though, I want to give thanks to Uber Super Sloth for having me look at this. It's always fun to look at these oft-forgotten decks and see what the new support is. And thank to you for watching it. Anyway, until next time, good luck and have fun.